We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we're giving you, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Burt Sharondy, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETR. And sudden news flash, if you hadn't noticed, but first, I was the one who was sick on Sunday's night's reaction to this episode. And all of a sudden, 3 out of the 4 hosts tonight have something. We all have something. We don't really know what it is, but we have our suspicions. Anyway, we're here to talk about the finer points of this episode. What episode? Well, it's House of the Dragon's 5th episode of its 2nd season, titled, one word, Regent.
Oh, we finally got the name.
Well, I mean, we got it right after the
Which, of course,
reaction. Hey, like we always do. And again, you ran with dragon seeds for the 2nd time in a row, which is funny because, yes, it's kind of true because dragon seeds are implied in this episode. And yet it's still not the title. We will never get dragon seeds as a title for these episodes, ever. We won't. Even though every episode we talk about dragon seeds. It's true, it's sad. It's sad for everybody.
Are you going to start calling chicken eggs chicken seeds?
Yeah.
You missed what I said on Sunday, but I said I want Hugh to be one of the dragon riders because I just want to see that hair flowing in the wind.
Flowing. Oh, yes. Yes.
She had to pause to think about it for a minute.
Hugh.
Let me think about that.
Why don't we start with him? And we haven't seen Ulf again, but he was on my mind in this episode when we talk about Targaryens in the wild and
Who's
in Westeros.
Ulf was the guy in the bar.
Yeah.
The guy in the bar, which if there is a connection there because is it Diana the barmaid, Sharondy?
Yes.
Is that her name?
Yes.
Who Elinda, her handmaid, ventures to Westeros under Mysaria's guidance or her name to do the propaganda whisper campaign to get the people to say, well, wasn't it great when Viserys was in charge? Well, he chose Rhaenyra. So we see Diana. Diana reminds us of the bar.
Don't these people suck? That's like all you have to say.
They didn't have to be told. They just had to be like, yeah, wasn't it great?
Diana was the girl that Aegon assaulted in season 1, and Alicent made her drink moon tea and then paid her off and fired her from the castle. That's who Diana is.
And just like Mysaria, how the mighty have fallen also.
Which is why when last week I watched both episodes, rewatched both episodes today, so I might get some of them mixed up. But when the maester brought her the tea, there really was no reason for him to suspect that it was for her, because I'm sure that they had to do it for Aegon many times. So while Larys was the one that was, yeah, I know what you're doing. Because I know people were saying, why wouldn't the maester be suspicious? No, not really, because he's been doing that for her, for Aegon, for years.
Yeah. Right. And we've seen it at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So
we can assume that it's been done many times.
Well, Alicent didn't seem very surprised when she had to deal with Diana. It wasn't like she was like, oh no, what did my son do? I can't believe it. She's like, yep, here's some money, here's some moon tea, bye, go work in a bar.
Yeah, live your life away from this castle. It's so funny when you think about it, because then we bring her up, and as much as I don't like it, and I won't say that out loud. Listen, I have to do a lot of apologizing for the men in this episode, in all these episodes. But in a way, Alicent does this, and she says, I'm doing you a favor, get the heck out of here. But Kriston Cole sort of does the same thing to Alicent. I'm sparing your name, Alicent Hightower, or technically Targaryen, the horrors that will have to befall the kingdom as a result of this war. This should not happen in your name. That's why I said Aemon should take charge. Not because I don't think you're fit to rule, but you should not be a part of what's about to happen, because I saw it with my own eyes. He's not communicating this, though.
Daemon has the opposite problem, because he basically did not tell the Blackwoods to not fly the Targaryen banner while they were massacring. No, he said there are things that the king can't be associated with the crown. He did not specifically say, don't fly my banners while you're out there doing that.
I think the assumption's there, but if he's not bright enough to get that, I don't want people to know this was us.
I mean, he also wants them to acquiesce. So maybe, if you show this is who we're, I don't know, but I'm saying Daemon had the same problem, because everybody was mad at him because they were out there raping and pillaging the Riverlands and hurting innocent people.
Mostly
under
Brackens.
the guise of the crown.
Right, right. Well, and then there's always the strategies too. All the different strategies now in 3 vectors now. Okay, this is turning into Game of Thrones now. We have a war on 3 fronts so far. And I'm noticing that with this episode specifically. You guys had said, oh, not much happened here. I'm like, first of all, I want to be clear. I really like this episode.
I did too.
For the exact opposite reasons you guys said you probably didn't like it as much on Sunday. I was like, oh, I like it when it's quiet and there's mourning, but then there's a lot of things happening underneath the surface.
I beg that I was on vacation and I was watching on my laptop in my car outside of the McDonald's, so it was very hard for me to get into it. But now that I have rewatched it today, I liked it a lot more.
You actually got to see Corliss's tear in the beginning, which
Poor
you probably couldn't
Corlys.
see before. But there's a lot going on there too.
I want to say Jane was kind of rough for dropping Rhaenys' death on her granddaughter like that. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm sorry about your grandma dying. Bye, peace. That was pretty rough,
You're saying Jane Eyre or?
Yeah, Jane Eyre.
That was a power move. That's what that was.
It's what we've been accustomed to, at least from Game of Thrones. It was another Aaron down the line, right? And she did a whole bunch of things with the breastfeeding and the thing and the dropping the people. Yeah.
But Lysa was not an Aaron born. She married into the Aarons. She was a Tully because she was Catelyn's sister.
Right. Okay, thanks for reminding me. But there's this weird, we need to be so secure. We need to make sure. And it's this weird thing where I saw this same behavior in Maggie from The Walking Dead on Hilltop. This is after Rick left the show. It was a 6-year time jump. Maggie's doing great. Oh no, it had the 6-year time jump didn't happen, but she was in charge and the saviors were on life support, basically. Oh, we keep having to send stuff down there. No more. We have to take care of ourselves. No more for you. So it was like this, we maintain our own. We don't have to care. We have the nuts. We don't need to acquiesce to the queen. So I saw that all over the place. And it's like, it's not enough that you're up in the sky and you're basically well guarded. Well, we're not protected from dragons. Really, girl? What's the deal here? But she knows it.
When the Conqueror came, the Vale was the same impenetrable place it is now. But Visenya flew in on Vhagar and basically threatened them by, if I remember, the young lord of the house wanted to ride the dragon. She took the little boy up and rode him around on Vhagar, and then she brought him back. And basically the threat was like, bend the knee to me or I'm going to drop your kid off my dragon up in the sky. So she basically forced them to acquiesce. She didn't use the dragon to destroy the Vale or to burn the Vale down. She used the power of somebody loving the dragon, the excitement of the dragon.
And so maybe that stain or that trauma has been passed down from generation to generation.
Well, I mean, as we've seen, families tend to hold on to their grudges in this world. Not just the Hatfields and McCoys we got going on, but Lannisters hated Tyrells and the Starks hated the Freys and the Boltons. Everybody has their own point of pride, and at some point, some houses prick that pride.
Everyone's a little bit racist.
Yeah.
Well, they're just like this. And even Rhaenyra says at the
Everybody's
end of the episode,
a little bit houseist.
But it's so funny because even Rhaenyra goes, well, imagine a Tully on a dragon. Those
Am I going to put a
Tullys.
Mallister on a dragon?
Which, I don't know what that is, but it sounds like Lannister. Mal's in the first part of the name.
Mallister.
Speaking of names, we haven't heard this one in a while. And Jason, which is Tyland's twin brother, is riding towards Harrenhal. Jace comes in with the save, it seems like, in terms of making a deal with the twins at the crossing. At the twins, which is a crossing between the huge body of water, which gives them a direct route to Harrenhal.
I mean, everybody who has watched Game of Thrones knows all about the Towers and the Freys.
Yes, that was all in my mind. And then we get to the phrase and it's like, okay, they're not so bad. They're kind of doing what Lady Jane Eyre and the Vale is doing at the Eyrie. Okay, I get it. The most unreasonable people are actually in Game of Thrones are being pretty reasonable right now. Is it gonna change? We don't know.
Jace is pretty good at the diplomacy. It's like he got the diplomacy from Rhaenyra, and we have yet to see if he has any fighting skill, but he's definitely better at it than Daemon.
Absolutely. And I'm glad they're not related by blood.
They're all related, David.
Offspring. I know. I just meant like not his offspring.
They're related by blood in the normal way.
Yeah, and he's like my uncle father. It's
not
normal.
The father part.
My step uncle father.
My uncle, not the father. Right, exactly. Or actually, wouldn't be a great uncle. He'd be kind of like a cousin.
Here's an interesting little tidbit. Vhagar and Meleys, which Meleys is Rhaenys's dragon, were ridden by Alyssa and Balon the Brave, married couple, who are the mother and father of Viserys and Daemon.
Right. And incidentally, the sire to Ulf, Balon the Brave was Ulf's.
Well, that's what Ulf says anyway.
Right, yeah, you're right, exactly. If we're to take his word.
You said Alyssa?
Yes.
So Alyssa is who Damon's having sex dreams about?
Yes.
Gross.
We're to believe that that's his mother. Where was that explicitly said? What Alice said later on in the episode?
No, she said, "You're my favorite
she
son."
She called him...
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. You know what really distracted me? That whole scene. So I wasn't able to hear words.
Imagine. Okay, so I mentioned in Sunday's episode that nobody seems to notice Alice Rivers. The only person you ever see her talking to or interacting with is Daemon. Now, in this episode, the scene where Sir Simon comes to him, it's not the River Lord scene.
This is the scene I was talking about. When he's in the hallway with her and he's talking to her and she turns around and all you can see is her hair and Simon comes past her and does like one of these.
Kind of looks at right.
Yeah.
And then she vanishes.
That's what I was talking about on Sunday. Is she even real? Because was he like, are you talking to a wall?
She is totally just bewitching him. Maybe she's like a shapeshifter or maybe she's a faceless man.
Oh.
Well, no, then wouldn't they all see what he sees? It feels a bit inconsistent here, but I was thinking, didn't the children of the forest do things like that? Appear as whatever to whomever, to appear to some, don't appear to others. So...
Well, she is a woods witch.
But even still, maybe she's appearing as a woods witch, but really she's one of the original children of the forest, which have apparently survived up until Game of Thrones, too. And we are in the right place for that sort of thing to occur.
Perhaps she's bewitching Daemon to see her as a young woman, and maybe she's more like Melisandre, and she's just really ancient, because she supposedly is also Lara Strong's wet nurse when he was a baby.
Well, that's according to the books. According to what we've seen on the screen, though, we don't have that information technically. We can run with the assumption, but at the same time, we have to be on guard. Jace actually says it in this episode. Oh, the Valyrian histories, they tend to gin us up as these conquerors, etc. The histories. Mm-hmm. Oh, they gild us, essentially.
Right.
It's kind of like telling the viewer, don't go by the books. They're going to mislead you because they're going to throw a little curveball our way when it comes to Alice Rivers.
They've also thrown another curveball. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kristen Cole told Alicent that Sunfire was a long time in dying.
No, he said that he left Sunfire there to protect whatever.
But long in dying.
I took that to mean that he wasn't doing well, but he left the dragon there to protect whatever hold they had on
both those things.
Oh, I didn't assume that dragon was protecting anything because that dragon is not okay.
Just the presence of it might be enough to deter anyone.
I do have a question, Dave, because you're talking about Harrenhal is in the right position for that a child of the forest to be there. It's not.
Riverlands.
But that's not where the children of the forest are. They're in the north.
They are in the north in the Game of Thrones era.
Right.
But they were throughout the country, throughout the thousands of years beforehand. But their spirits exist in the weirwood trees, which is why when they cut down all the weirwood trees to build Harrenhal, they were destroying the homes of the souls of the children of the forest.
Okay.
So,
and at least the first men had the wherewithal to keep a few heart trees planted around the kingdom to honor the old gods.
I don't know. I don't think she's real.
In the books, Sunfire is not dead. To me, it really sounded like he said Sunfire was a long time in the dying, which to me, it sounded like Sunfire died. But in the books, he did not. So I'm wondering if that's just an interesting change.
I assumed he was dead and that Kristan was lying about the dragon protecting it.
I'd be surprised if Aegon could survive all that, but not the frickin' dragon.
Because this was all contingent on my belief that Aegon was dead also.
Yeah.
Which he's not.
Yeah.
So, okay, fair.
I really like that in a way because there is symmetry. It's almost as if Kristan is saying Sunfire could protect Rook's Rest and the garrison could help too, but I left a measly garrison. So he doesn't know, just like Aegon's practically dead, just like Sunfire's practically dead. Their fates are intertwined. I like that. There's something to that. Last I left him, long in the dying, but still there to protect it. But there's also something else to your question. Because what was Kriston doing the whole time with Alicent? He was adding what she didn't to Aegon. He was adding honey to his language. He was trying to white lie the entire time. He didn't tell her what she wanted to hear, probably, or at least the necessary things she ought to hear. He was trying to coat his language in enough honey to not tell her, or at least confirm her worst fears, basically. Especially when it came to Aemond. You notice that when he was still polishing his sword, she says, "And what of Aemond?" And he just stops. For all we know, he loves her. For all we know. Whether you feel that's true or not, bleh. At least on the surface, that's the part he plays. I play the part of someone who loves someone, so I'm going to act accordingly. He feels like he almost can't lie to her about him.
He fought valiantly, I think is what he said.
No,
something
that
like
was Aegon.
She said, what was his part in all this? And he said, I couldn't say.
I couldn't say. I did write that down.
Which
Okay.
she obviously knows because Aemond has the dagger.
Exactly. And
Yep.
so
She saw the
in
dagger.
doing so, she confirms her worst fears. My monster son is a monster, took the dagger from my other son, who is also awful, but not as bad. And then my lover is lying to me. Let's just call him what he is, lover. Not greatest love. She
No,
kinda
I just
confirms
don't like
near
that
the end.
term. It's gross.
It's the easiest one, though, to use for this scenario.
Alicent, will you be my girlfriend? Check yes or no.
So this also goes to something even bigger than that, which is there's mirroring too. Obviously, Rhaenyra is having trouble with her own small council. So when it comes to Alicent and her around the small council, yeah, they're very kind to her, but they're also direct when they say what the world is. Even Tywin Lannister puts it very kindly. He says, "We don't mean to disrespect you at all when we say this. It's just this is what it is. We've earned our place." She says it to Aegon the episode prior. So we know what we're talking about. This is the way the world is.
Well, and they're correct that the whole thing that started this war was the unfitness for a woman to be on the throne. So if they raise up a woman, even as regent,
Or the concern, at least, yeah.
because for one thing, they don't want everybody to know that Aegon is on his deathbed. That's why they brought him in a covered wagon with cloths over.
It's one thing if he was injured, but another thing when he's on his deathbed.
I mean, at least with Viserys, he was an old man. Everybody knew he was ill. And having Alicent in his stead during peacetime wasn't a big deal. She wasn't calling herself the ruler. But if she's raised up to regent now in a time of war when there are other people available of age to take in hand, then why are we fighting then? Why didn't you let Rhaenyra
The
step
whole
up?
other thing was that you told everyone a woman can't do it. That's why we're putting in this man, because that's the preference of the king, because he knew a woman couldn't do it. She wasn't strong enough. But we're going to put a woman in that job. It doesn't make any sense. Like, the people would revolt because they'd be like, well, you said a woman couldn't do it. Now that's who you're putting in there.
And things are already bad enough.
Well,
So
they're horrible.
And the people are also upset because they paraded Melee's head through the town.
the Black Omen, basically.
Oh, yes. They touted the dragons as gods and they're unkillable and you can't take down dragons. And the
Yeah, and up
heavens
until
and
now, the Targaryens have
now-
been sage rulers.
again, this is showing the lack of having sensible people in your council. Kristen did the worst thing he could possibly do, which was go parade the head through the streets. That's something that Otto would never have condoned.
I don't know that it was his choice. Seems like an
Yeah.
Aemond idea.
No, I'm pretty sure it was.
It was very
Kristen.
political too, though, because as long as people are distracted looking at this dragon head, they're not wondering where
Mhm.
Aegon is
Yep.
and what happened to
Mhm.
him.
So there is a wisdom to what he does.
Well, their
That
goal
much.
was to show how strong they were, that they could take down this dragon. But what you just did was open the doors to people knowing that they can take down dragons.
This is what I was trying to say with the Targaryens being these benevolent rulers, maybe endowed by the gods as rulers too. What happens if you know as a human person, small folk, that you can kill a dragon? Well, then maybe the Targaryens themselves aren't these endowed by the
Well,
gods.
yeah, you can kill a dragon
rulers.
if you have a dragon, but ain't nobody else got a dragon.
But you have to understand, no, it's not even just that. It's just the possibility that can even happen demolishes your view of these people.
It's been 130 years, say. Maybe it's a little bit more. I think it's 150. But anyway, these people have been under the rule of the Targaryens for 150 years. And they've been taught for 150 years that dragons are gods and they can't be killed. And now they're faced with this idea that, yes, you can kill a dragon. They're not infallible. And that can come back and bite them in the rear end.
Mm-hmm. You know what? That's funny because if you pair what we just said to what Jace says about the Valyrian histories and how they're gilded, they make us look really great, then it sort of paints everything in a whole different light. These are just people that have a gift. There's nothing special about them. Maybe they weren't all as cracked up as even we as Targaryens make them out to be. So of course the small folk people of the realm have no idea how bad they may really be, or they may have been all this time. We got a peephole of that in Viserys. Yes, Viserys was at least listening to the right people for the good of the realm for the most part, and Targaryens before that, maybe things worked out because they listened to. We don't know the intricacies. And for all we know, Viserys, he didn't know everything that was going on behind his back all the time. Didn't always make the right decisions too. He got lucky, maybe. Maybe they all got lucky. Well, maybe they are endowed with the gods if they got that lucky. And you add to that the fact that people forget.
Think back 100 years from now and think of all the stuff that we think we know about 1924. And how wrong are we about that? And how much of it is just legend and folktale? And that's in a relatively modern world. So can you imagine 150 years of just being told tales and histories? That's what you know. There is no other education. There's nothing else to tell you any different.
And what else? Illiteracy too. How many people probably can't read, probably don't have readily available books to peruse and learn, and an actual education system too. So add, and it's easy for people to forget. All they care about, hey, are we going to eat today?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. Oh yeah, and dragons are gods. And these people can ride the gods. That's all they know. Oh yeah, and they rule us for a couple hundred years, basically, or several hundred years.
As long as there's stability and plenty and food and prosperity, the people don't give a crap who's on the throne.
How the sausage is made, right?
So, I mean, everything's fine. But now that things are going haywire, you've got people starving in the streets. You've got people stealing from their neighbors. Desperate people. Did you see the fruit they were being forced to eat? The rotten lemons? Meanwhile, Sir Kristen is up.
Everything.
Meanwhile, Sir Kristen is using a nice, fresh, juicy lemon to clean his sword. Like,
And
that's
salt
wasting. He's
from
not even
Essos.
eating it. Not even eating it, just wasting it. You know, the people don't know
Well,
that.
I wouldn't say he's
but
wasting it.
anyway, you know how many people could have been cured by scurvy with that lemon?
Approximately 3. That half.
Well, there you go.
So 6.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of that vitamin C.
As long as there's prosperity and plenty, the people are going to be fine. But
Right.
Mysaria has the right of it because people are already discontented, and now you're going to go and spread more discontent, and that's just going to make the people angrier and angrier.
You stoke a fire a little bit.
I would caution against stoking the flames too high because you can still get burned in Dragonstone, baby.
Then it leads to, well, why should we trust either?
Right, well, she's making the same mistake they did, saying, look how strong we are. But meanwhile, the people are like,
Well, no, I'm saying even Mysaria's plan could backfire, because if you rile up the populace, they may not be happy with any leader. Although I may just eat my own words, because again, the imagery you guys had mentioned on Sunday about the dog as they were taking down the rat catchers, the dog was still there to mourn his master. Cheese, if you remember the murderer.
poor little doggy.
But that's imagery for you, right? The dog, at least the domesticated dog, will still continue serving his master long after he's dead. And so the people will continue to seek a sage ruler to guide them or to lead them into plenty, like you said. That's just the way this world works, at least for now.
Kristen said, we've let loose the dragons. A dragon rider should run the show. But what they're doing is unleashing the populace.
Right, and who's
And
more mighty?
the populace, they might be able to do it too. So,
Well, I do remember Game of Thrones, though, when Daenerys herself unleashed her own dragon on King's Landing. It was kind of a horror show. Will Aemond unleash Vhagar on King's Landing? He has them all penned in. All he's got to do is go...
I mean,
Sorry,
Aemond,
that's me lighting a match or a lighter.
Aemond is smarter than his brother and a better leader than his brother, but he has the same failings Daemon does. He has no diplomacy. Like, his decision to close the gates, I feel, is going to be a very detrimental decision for him.
Add insult to injury.
Yeah.
Well, not only are you going to complain, you won't be able to leave to complain to other nearby
Well, you won't-
crownlands or whatever.
You're not even going to give us a chance to go out and survive. You're basically locking us in here and forcing us to starve to death and watch our children starve to death.
Exactly. Completely out of touch. Everybody in the Red Keep is completely out of touch. That's what I wanted to compare Alicent to, because I hadn't finished with that, which was one by one, the men she thought she could trust. One by one. Except for the Maester, because God bless that guy. he's like, well, she ruled quite fairly. So the one person who came to her defense, Laris, who she thought maybe she could have some sort of kinship with, and then especially Kriston Cole, after batting for each other several episodes ago, now finally realizing, no, but he in his own way was trying to spare her from that. Now, I had another thought about that, though. Would you say, before I even go into this, that in relative terms, and for all our perhaps opinions about each person on the small council in King's Landing, would you say they are at least smart enough to be able to run things? Ironrod, the Maester, Tywin Lannister.
I mean, Ironrod, come on.
How do you not trust a guy named Ironrod?
So you're asking if there was not a singular appointed leader, could this panel of...
They have a sense of what the realm needs. They have each pull in from their different influences. Tywin with coin, because Lannisters always pay their debts.
They're no spider.
Right, they're no Laris, because he's the...
That's not what I'm talking about. From
present
Game
day
of Thrones.
spider. I know, yes. The Master of Whispers, etc.
Varys.
Okay.
Varys
I mean, in a general sense, they know what the crown needs, and they execute their duties fine. It's okay, relative terms. I say this because...
I would debate they're maybe more ambition-driven than that.
Perhaps. Well, and who isn't? That's kind of what I mean by relative terms anyway. Okay, so all that aside, I know we spend a lot of time just establishing this one fact before I say the one thing. Rhaenyra is told that she cannot leave because she is the queen, and the queen needs to be protected. Same with Jace. Queen has a dragon. Jace has a dragon. But who else has the mightiest dragon? Vhagar. Now, throughout this episode, they've been saying we should fear Vhagar, 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 Vhagar. One point in this episode, Rhaenyra's small council says Vhagar is depleted. And I had said to someone, and I can't remember where, probably not in an episode, that dragons are a lot like fast cars. They burn a lot of gas. To go with the general lore, they spend a lot of time sleeping because it costs them a lot of energy to do the things that they're supposed to do for their riders. Vhagar, after that huge battle, is depleted. At least in Rhaenyra's small council says it out loud.
Vhagar is also extremely old. She was already an adult fighting dragon when the Conqueror came over with his sisters. So she's at least 150, 200 years old.
When Visenya first rode her.
Right.
How long do dragons live?
It's indefinite, but they basically grow and live until they just get too big to live, which Vhagar's getting there because she's getting too big to carry herself anymore.
So they get too big to fly and then they die because they're so huge and their little puny wings can't carry them anymore?
Yeah, they grow until they die. Yep.
What? What? This lore is insane.
Well, you could already see Vhagar's wings have little holes in them too.
Well, yeah, battle worn.
So like on top of that.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying here is that two things are true. Yes, Vhagar's depleted, but yes, also appointing Aemond as regent means he must stay. He cannot go off and fight, or else they'd have to make Alicent regent in his stead while he's out and to make those decisions or something to that effect. So in doing so, this is what kills me about some of the decisions on the small council. How many dragons do the Greens have right now? Vhagar, obviously.
Helena's dragon, Dreamfire. Sunfire, we're not sure about.
Right, but let's consider Sunfire out, down for the count, like
And
Vhagar-ish.
then their son, Daron, who is not here, he has Tessarion, the dragon.
Was that a young dragon, though, if I remember
Well,
right?
I think he's like Jace's dragon, because Daron's about
Somewhat.
Jace, a little bit younger than Jace, I think.
So somewhat fighting age, but not
Right, like
quite.
it would probably be like Luke's, maybe, flyable.
Right. So really the only viable option is Dreamfire with Helena as its rider.
Right, Jaehaera has one, but I can't remember
but she's
Jaehaera's.
not at all.
She's a baby,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
I think that is it, though.
My point is the only person capable of really wielding a dragon that is capable right now is Helena. And I don't think Helena's going out to ride anytime soon. And if Aemond has to stay, this is my question. Do you think in a way that the council in King's Landing is tying down Aemond's hands? Maybe they too are sick of this S.
Well, I think you're assuming that just because he's the regent means he's going to stay there.
Yep. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Kriston Cole, as the hand, should also be staying in the castle to plan, not to go out and lead the armies. So they're not going to do what they are supposed to do. If Aemond wants to get on Vhagar and go fly to Harrenhal, what becoming the regent does is give him leave to do whatever the heck he wants, and he doesn't have to answer to anybody.
Okay. The only reason why I said that is because just like a chessboard, the king can only move so many spots within a move. And so it would just be comical if Aemond somehow got knocked off the board because he was being reckless and should be staying behind. But of course, he won't because he's the only option practically. And Vhagar is depleted. So that's kind of why I have this back and forth thinking about the council itself, their own reasons for tying down Aemond maybe to King's Landing. It made me think.
I don't think that's going to be a thing. He's going to do whatever Aemond wants to do. It's just another illustration why he's such a terrible leader.
And it would be a byproduct of the time, too. It has to be a man that rules and not be free to actually be a warrior out in the field full time. There's a little bit of ill wisdom in all that, or at least from our point of view, being in the 2024, not ancient times.
My feeling is now that Aegon is kind of down for the count, that they will recall Otto to King's Landing. And then he can sit in, even though technically Aemond would be the regent, Otto would be there holding down, making the decisions. Because I don't think there was a problem between Aemond and Otto. I think the problem was Aegon.
He was one of the ones that made the comment when he was planning with Criston Cole about the crownlands. He said, I can't trust my mother even, and Otto, of course. That's where I picked that up from. Both Aegon and Aemond don't seem to have really love for the tricky high towers. So if he does come crawling back...
They may decide that's what they need right now, though. Just like Daemon decided he needed the men like the Brackens who would risk letting Caraxes burn them from behind rather than bend the knee. Maybe he figures he needs somebody like Otto, especially once they start the propaganda, because none of them are going to know how to handle that. Not even Larys. Larys has never been out of the castle out there. He doesn't know anything about the people, which is where Mysaria has a advantage.
Home court.
She knows the people, whereas Larys is a noble. He doesn't know anything about the people.
You know, I feel like even Otto might be a little outclassed by Mysaria in a sense. Again, he's an quote-unquote, very loose, but still kind of true, because he does things for the good of the realm. Otto is still a sort of honorable man. He will do things with honor. He will not make a move that is dishonorable, or at least appears honorable. So he might be outclassed with how far he's willing to go.
Otto just won't do things that are stupid.
Yes, within the context of making your houses look good, though, which means we look pure and righteous. That's his whole thing. I should preface by saying, yes, I agree with you. And yes, it would be a great way for Aemond also to take a little lesson that Aegon took about what it means to listen to your counsel and how maybe he won't react the same way Aegon did in futility. Maybe Aemond will go a little nutty or do something drastic to make himself heard. That would kind of mirror what Daemon is kind of going through. Because again, I can't tear away from that dream that he keeps having about him being Aemond and Daemon, and they're the same person.
I get it, but I've really just about had enough of these dream things. Like, it's really getting kind of old for me.
You never did like dreams.
They're trying to make it seem haunted and blah, blah. Okay, fine. But there's been like 3 episodes of this now, so move along.
Would you stop with the dreams?
Yeah. But I will say that when Sir Strong woke him up and he was like, what is it, Sir Strong? Is the pudding being served? He cracked me up.
You remember when we talked about, oh, this series doesn't have humor? I'm finding humor in Daemon, who, in my own estimation, is the least likely place I would have thought I would have found humor, really. He is a terrifying person, and yet he's the butt of every joke the last few episodes.
You should call me king. Sir Strong is like, but you're not? And he's like, well, what would you call the man who's married to the queen? And Sir Simon's like, king? And
there it is,
he's like, right. And he's like, consort?
Consort. Then he says, of course, the flourish. That last bit seems unnecessary. Don't you think?
This last bit is a little unnecessary, isn't it?
There is a bigger point here, because that is a shift from Sir Simon Strong, because at first he's all like entreating him. He's like, oh, my mistake. Yeah, sorry, my bad, your grace. And now he's like,
what if Rhaenyra finds out that he's over here calling Daemon king and all that? Like, he's kind of stuck in the middle of this, and it's like not a really good place to be.
I have the most sympathy for Sir Simon Strong right now. But he's being a little bit more bold, and I kind of dig it, because as Daemon's going a little bit more crazy, plus also taking some big-ass swings, because I'm your king now, and he's making that known to everybody. You are my bannerman.
Rhaenyra, when I take King's Landing, Rhaenyra can join me. Oh,
quote,
I was
unquote,
like, oh.
Alice Rivers now.
Oh, Daemon, what are you doing, my friend?
Right, so that's the big change, because you guys were already on board. Oh, he just wants to be king. And I was like, the dreams say, okay, he's conflicted. And this episode was pretty clear. He did behead her in the dream, so that means he chose something. Again, men's ambitions will sometimes outpace what they actually need, which is sanity in this case. Because stop effing your mother eating her out, at least in your dreams. So don't do it. That's our disclaimer this episode.
Much like dreams, what he's doing in the dream doesn't necessarily represent what he wants. He wanted the approval and the love of his mother. But being a Targaryen, that is so twisted up with sex that it's hard for them to separate. He never knew his mother. His mother died when he was like 6 months old. What he really wants is love and affection. Much like Aemond just wanted love and affection from the madam. There was sex twisted up in that too. But again, it's more that he's missing that love and affection from the mother, and that's what he really wants.
And add to the fact that it's the way we see them, the fairer sex. And they fall in this trap. What does the brothel madam do with all the information that Aemond must be passing on? Well, eventually, doesn't it end up in Mysaria's hands? Possibly, putting it out there. Because she says out loud, she says, well, it's often a small folk that get hurt by the whims of the people in charge, the royalty. This is a bit of a stretch, and I don't even know if it's going to stay in, but there's a bit of imagery in the dream that's extra to the obvious thing that is very distracting. And that's, of course, the blood on his hands after he's through with his own mother, which, yes, is the blood from the bloody goose that they're eating. But I also thought something else. And I had assumed, because I don't remember if this was said out loud in the shows, but you told me that she died 6 months after he was born, right?
Yeah, he was still a baby.
Right. And so I thought to myself, okay, what if she too was a dreamer / seer? What if she didn't want to live long enough to see what her own freshly newborn baby was going to do in the future?
Oh, I actually, and this was just a huge assumption on my part because I don't know anything about anything. But when that happened, I was like, oh, did she die during childbirth?
That's what I thought initially too, until Charity said it out loud.
I was listening to a podcast and they said it.
So that's what kind of led me to that. And so, which would be ironic because everything that's being said in the dream is exactly probably what he wants to hear, but is not at all the truth. In fact, if she was a dreamer and she thought, well, I'm seeing this horrible offspring of mine do terrible, terrible things, dishonorable things, things that are happening right now, all the screams of the Brackens he's hearing in his ear through the wind, like Alice Rivers is. Well, yeah, maybe that's what his mom heard too and made her crazy and wanted to kill herself. The end.
I think the blood on his hands was representative of the blood on his hands in his quest for the throne, which he really only wants to prove that his mother loved him, which may be why he was so into Rhaenyra, because she looked like his mother.
Oh, too bad therapy wasn't a thing.
You like Game of Thrones? You'll like the Starks in Winterfell. The men of the North, delish.
We do love the North.
I started getting the same feeling about the Riverlands. I love the idea that they're very in tune with the old gods, the ancient gods of the forest, etc., right? I love that part. But then you start seeing it in the people. And it's no wonder that Ned Stark chose a woman from the Riverlands, Catelyn Stark, or the opposite, whatever, how that goes. So when I see the River Lords coming to Daemon near the end of the episode going, nah, this is barbaric, this is stupid, what are you doing? It's unreasonable. Whatever the words they use that just show how cool they are, kind of like the Starks. I got those feels and I kind of liked it. It's kind of like that feeling when we jump into season 2. We're at the wall. We're at Winterfell. Why are we there? I just got a pep in my step and goosebumps on my skin. So I got that feeling by the end of this episode when I saw the Riverlords punching back. They're going, hey, we're not doing this. Now, listen, I know this is just it's a temporary feeling that I'm going to get right now because Daemon's going to do something crazy the next episode. But I have it now, so I'm going to express it now. And I thought maybe you had that feeling too. Like, hey, these guys sound familiar to me.
Well, we like it when people stand up to bullies.
But like down to the garb too. They kind of dress the same too. I didn't notice that at first. And I kind of like it.
Honestly, I did not put that together.
But now that I said it out loud,
I see it. I see it.
And they're saying all the right things. Like, they're not quite going as far as Oscar Tully going, while he's still alive? They're kind of saying it like adults, you know? So, like, I know it's not the reaction episode, but it's like upon further thought, so it is a finer point. I liked seeing this evolution of Rhaenyra as the conciliator. At first, he's like, these men, huff, puff, puff. and she's right. But you could be right and losing, or you can be conciliatory and winning. And it's like she's picking this up as she goes. I don't know how to deal with being a wartime queen. So she's learning. Appear to apologize to the one man who's been so annoying this entire season, Sir Alfred. So when it finally comes down to talking to him, yes, she does give a few facial expressions to express her, but she says, "You are correct," which is what men love to hear. Admittedly, me, man, saying it. And adds, "You guys have been so loyal. The Brooms have been very loyal to the crown, Viserys." And he's like, "I would die for you. I would die for you and Viserys." Men love to say, "I would die." They would never die. It's fine. But you can say it and it feels pretty good. I'm getting to a point. She seems to be learning as she goes, and she's listening to Masari's advice of using the people that you got. Whereas the Red Keep is saying, "Go at it alone. Yeah, the Regent will save us."
So there's an interesting point there, Dave, because Rhaenyra is listening to someone who is a small folk, whereas the Red Keep is like really insular. They've got like this silo mentality of like, we only know what we see.
We know better.
So because we're locked away, we don't see what's happening outside of the wall. Literally outside of our walls, people are dying and starving and they're trying to revolt. And we're like, "Nah, bro, you like it here. You like it here.
Yeah,
just stay here.
You want
like
to
it
revolt? Stay here a little bit longer.
And it's not as if they don't know. It's that they don't A, care, and B, they don't know how bad it is. So they know that there's a problem.
What I was trying to say is that because Rhaenyra's open to the concepts of small folk, or like, even if you're just looking at it from like a socioeconomic status, she's willing to like take a poor person's advice because Masari has had to swallow her pride, ask people to help that she doesn't want to ask help from, kind of manipulate people to work in the way that she needs them to get things done. And Rhaenyra is like, "Oh, okay, I'll try that," because Masari is like a nobody and made it this far in life. So that says something about how she operates. I just think it's interesting to see that there's like a parallel there.
That's kind of what I was saying. They're doing it one way, but she's doing it a different way.
But I'm not saying it's not Rhaenyra that's doing that, though. That's because she's willing to listen. It wasn't like her idea or anything. She's willing to hear out the people around her.
But this connects to a bigger theme, and that is what she says to Jace at the end of the last episode. What is a leader? What is our legacy? As a leader, you're not leading people, you're protecting them and uniting against a greater foe. So you have to remember that every moment you're on the throne. And you're not alone. You're uniting people that will be not useful to you, mutually beneficial for each other, because your job is protector of the realm, of the people underneath you. It's not about you and your glory and your house. It's about the 7 kingdoms, all of you uniting together against a common foe. And anybody outside of that is dust because they're evil and bad. Anyway, and so when you get that sense, that ancient Targaryen Song of Ice and Fire thing she gives to Jace, and you transpose that to the different styles of ruling, well, whose is more going after that play or that plan? And it's never been more reflected to when Jace is actually with the Freys at the crossing with the door as a table, which I thought was pretty cool when you got to see that overhead shot. What was the question that Serena Frey asked Jace? And he answered right away. Will you protect us? He does not hesitate and say, yes, we will, because he just heard that speech from Rhaenyra at the end of the episode. That's what we're supposed to do. And then it's never been more reflective that that's the right move. When he comes back, yes, she's mad at Jace, of course. But the first thing she says is, I'm proud of you. It's like, you listened to me. You took what I said and ran with it.
I'm sorry, do we think that Jace made the right call? Because I thought he was an idiot.
I agree. And I was actually surprised that Rhaenyra,
Okay.
But this goes to what I'm saying.
I felt like when she said she was proud of him, I thought there was some sort of miscommunication, like she wasn't getting the whole story, because he made a lot of promises that he has no idea if he can keep, because they're reliant on a psychopath in a castle that's falling apart around him.
They're not relying on him.
He did say that they want Harrenhal after the war permitting. Sure, give him Harrenhal, but we know from the fact that the Freys are not in Harrenhal that that's not going to happen.
In either case, she knew exactly what had transpired between the Freys and the Crossing, and she just wanted to get his take. That's why she's proud of him. But yes, it's not what I expected her to say. But again, that goes to the same thing with the Alfred situation. She's learning that, okay, with these men, especially this man with his peacock feathers and impulses, Jace, listen, I like the kid, but he's got some of that, young man energy that is
Well,
quite
yeah,
annoying.
Sharon D said
He got the blue steel going on.
Sharon D says he was sleeping around.
Yeah,
in the
I
books.
did notice that too, by the way. Especially at when he's with the phrase, he's kind of like, yes, you can offer you protection.
I was listening to some more lore earlier today, and you got to remember this is coming from different sources. So one source says that she's
right.
a lesbian and that she has women in the castle that wait on her, etc.
That's the Greens. They're like, oh yeah, she's a lesbian.
Mushroom is the court jester. He's a dwarf, and he is always the one that has the salacious gossip.
Oh.
And I think he's the one that said that she told Jace that she would commit her men to Rhaenyra if he, quote, brought her to climax with his tongue, unquote.
Wait. So what if?
What's happening?
I can't believe I'm going to say this though.
Jace is also supposed to marry Bela, but in the books he never does. He keeps putting the wedding off. I think it's Mushroom again. His take is that he was secretly married to Cregan Stark's bastard sister when he was in.
Oh, I thought Cregan Stark. Because I saw a little of that energy.
He didn't want to commit because he was not batting for that team, you know?
Yeah, because he married Cregan Stark's bastard sister when he was in Winterfell. But they didn't bring that into it either. Again, everything in the books you have to take with a grain of salt because it's all coming from unreliable sources.
Pour the salt out of the shaker because it's like, just keep throwing it everywhere. Because this is fun, but it's like, none of this seems
nuts.
to be true.
It's absolutely nuts.
I love hearing it, by the way.
Well, it's like when you hear really good gossip and you're like, there's no way that that's true. And then it's not.
But at the time, if you knew how to read, this is crazy good.
Yeah.
This is also the type of propaganda that was spread around, which is exactly what Mysaria and Rhaenyra are about to do, is start spreading some gossip. Now, I don't think it's going to be like, oh, Aegon is a sexual harasser and he has bastards everywhere, because nobody cares about that. That's just suspected of kings. Nobody's going to care. So I'm not sure I'm not sure what the whispers will be.
You don't even need that much, too, at least on Rhaenyra's part. For Mysaria, she just needs a little nudge.
They're going to be like, did you hear they're using lemons to polish their swords?
Rhaenyra is learning kind of the same way Jon Snow did when he was at the Wall, complimenting Alfred Broom and sending him on a job. She got him out of her hair, but she also didn't insult him to where he would withdraw his men or whatever. What Jon Snow did, he promoted Alliser Thorne to the head ranger, and then when he tried to send Janos Slynt away, Janos looked to Alliser for help. Alliser's like, yeah, I don't know, dude, you're on your own. He made Alliser not on his team as much, but not as against him, and he got rid of Janos Slynt because they ended up beheading him because he wouldn't go where he told him to.
You Sharon explained, because I said that already. But you had tied in the Jon Snow reference, so that's very helpful. Because that's what I was basically trying to say. She's learning on the job. And she even admitted earlier that he's not wrong. It's not like my father raised me to swing a sword. I knew all the lords and ladies from Storm's End to the Riverlands.
That was a shout out to Bran, because in season 1, we see Bran sitting at the table with the maester, and he's bored, making him learn all the houses and their sigils.
That darling
Maester
man.
Luwin.
Right? And I'm getting those same vibes from, even though he's on the wrong team, whatever, he still was loyal to Viserys, the Maester Orwyle, who treats Aegon.
But the Maesters, they're pledged to a house, not to the family. So, for instance, Maester Luwin was pledged to Winterfell, not necessarily to House Stark. Correct. Right. So,
whereas the Grand Maester.
The Maester is pledged to King's Landing, not necessarily to Aegon or Aemond or any of them. He just happens to be the one that's pledged to King's Landing.
All right, you're in charge? Okay. What do you need, patient? A moon tea? Okay, coming right up. But he defended Alicent. I can't get that out of my head. He just seems to be at least in earnest. He doesn't shy away from the truth either. As much as it may cost him, he does use the right words, and yet he still put it to you straight and not in a way that's going to cause you distress. If he doesn't know something, he says, I don't know.
Rachel, how much did you enjoy watching them peel the armor off of Aegon?
It was pretty gross.
Yeah, that was awesome. I especially enjoyed them setting his leg.
Oh, that was so nasty.
Yeah, that was some good prop work.
The way his skin was just sticking to it and they were pulling it off and you could see all the patches on it.
They removed the one piece and it immediately started bleeding because the skin just lifted away and there was just like blood.
Would that be just like latex?
Oh, I'm sure it was a lot of stuff. Anything that was like stretchy was probably most likely latex because you get that stringy
Mhm.
appearance.
Yeah.
If it's thin
Ew,
enough,
Aegon looked like a cheese
it'll-
pull. Gross.
it'll stretch and peel. A lot of it was probably silicone and fake blood.
To
And,
give it a little bit more tautness. Yeah.
yeah,
Because
like the
skin
leg.
isn't that stretchy, folks.
like that leg piece. I'm sure that was all a silicone mold that they dug out and made. And that
It's,
was
you know what? And it's
that was
that
my favorite part,
realistic
was the
click.
leg.
Yeah, that click of the
Oh, that
bones. It's
snapping
like,
sound.
it's not like I
Yeah.
expected. It's actually, we're so fragile as humans.
I know nobody else wants to stare at those scenes, but I'm always like, no, go back. It's always so fast. Obviously, it's not real. And if you hang out on it for too long, you'll see just how not real it is. Go back, zoom in on that.
So I'm glad we're here because we had compared in the reaction, well, not we, you guys did. I think I said something, but how Aegon in this moment, especially in the aftermath, looked a lot like Viserys did with the bandages and those. But what we didn't maybe say, and what we could say now, is that just like his brother, Aegon don't got an eye too.
Yeah, no, his looked like his eye was welded shut.
Fused or whatever. But yeah, it's sunken in too. So there's at least that effect that it's sunken in. So there's symmetry there as well. And if you remember, by the end of Viserys's tenure, he had been missing an eye as well.
When they were peeling that stuff up and they were getting all this stuff ready to like put on his skin, for some reason I was right. It reminded me of when Jorah had the stone disease, and they were like peeling
grayscale. Thank you.
And
the stone disease.
Sam like treated him and had to peel all that off.
It's gross,
that
but
was
so
cool
awesome.
too.
Yeah, that was in my mind too, of mayhaps they bring this into the lore as well. And it would be another thing that they forgot, because they did forget in Game of Thrones how to treat, or if they ever treated grayscale. No, they think they dug in. Yeah, he went to the Citadel and found out, a possible cure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yet another thing, like the scorpions, like the dragons even existing. Another thing that people would forget that we could bring in again to this series. Which, will we get tired of things that they forgot and brought back? No, we won't, because we love a callback, sort of pre-callback.
That's fan service, baby.
A call forward.
A call forward, or flash call flash. Back call.
It's just saying words now.
Word salad, like the salad they put on Aegon.
It did look like I had a lettuce.
People are starving, but they're just going to cover him in lettuce.
I really just wanted to see that on him. It was pretty horror show to see all that stuff. And I know you liked it, but at the same time, okay, now put the salad on him.
Think about how cool they would be, because it looked like they were putting those on the burns. And they were dipping them in, like, I guess something antiseptic or whatever. But I feel like the leaves would be really cool on his skin, as long as they don't leave them on there until they rot into the sores.
That's all I could think of as they started pulling the lettuce leaves, making it just looked like slimy. And now I remembered, yeah, okay, I guess we are in medieval times, because that seems like moldy.
At least they didn't bleed him.
That's not what you want. Well, they incidentally did, but that wasn't their fault.
So much like Viserys, he's going to spend a good amount of his time just laying in the bed drinking milk of the poppy. So,
mummy.
Like father, like son. And Viserys's dragon died too. That's why he didn't have one. He rode him once and then he never rode him again.
He died of a broken heart.
He died of old age. It was Balerion the Black Dread that was the same dragon that came over with Vhagar.
That was the one that Aegon the Conqueror actually
Correct. Aegon the Conqueror rode
because
Balerion.
Vhagar was Visenya's dragon, first rider. I'm getting it slowly but surely. Going back to Rhaenyra, I like that she's picking this up as she goes. And then you get the thing at the end where, of course, Jace makes the suggestion of the other Targaryen people in the bloodline that are in other houses, because you don't look blonde of hair or white of hair and look like an effeminate elf. Well, like a little bit, but...
Yeah, he doesn't look like Legolas.
But it's like, along with Mysaria, like you were saying, Bridget, choosing to listen to Mysaria's advice about connecting with the common folk and harnessing their power, she also listens to her son with this unconventional thought process and advice.
That's what I was going to say. They're willing to try different things, whereas the Greens are just like, let's just kill everything. Let's just use our power to crush everything. Which even Allison said, is that all we have now? Is that going to be our god now?
What of justice? What of temperance?
Right.
So you guys had said something in the reaction video that surprised me. You had felt bad for Kristen Cole having this traumatic PTSD, the sudden realization that, oh, we're outshadowed and outclassed by this dragon war.
Kriston is the only person who's been in battle before in Dorne. He fought battles in Dorne that didn't have anything to do with the crown. So he and Daemon, who fought in the Stepstones, fighting the crab feeder,
Who looked like a crabbish person.
he had grayscale and was totally insane. Kristen's the only one who's fought in battles, but he's never fought in a dragon battle. So even he wasn't prepared for what a dragon battle is. And I think it just freaked him out. Like,
it
oh my
terrifies
God,
him to
what
boot.
have we done?
Yeah, I think he just realizes how out of his depth he is. And it's not even just the dragon portion, but also the politics and manipulation of everything else that's going on.
He knows that Daemon tried to kill Aegon on the field, his own brother.
On top of everything else, and he has the dragon.
He has to deal with that too. And when he told Alicent he was sparing her, I think he also meant that he was sparing her knowing that Aemond was that. I mean, she knows, but he's like, I'm not going to make sure that you know that.
He uses, again, honey in his language. He's not saying the thing out loud that she probably already knows.
Yeah, that's what I mean by the politics of it all. Knowing the manipulation, the backstabbery that's going to happen, seeing that and having to carry that with you. And also he pledged himself to be Aegon's protector.
Right,
He's Kingsguard.
on top of everything else.
He's Kingsguard, tried and true, like deep down, he's Kingsguard. He held that
Right,
so
say what
close
you
to
will
his
about
heart.
him.
Like, yeah, say whatever you want about his relationship with Alicent. That was something that he really took pride in, to not be able to do that because one, you're just out of your depth because there's dragons, dude, and you can't fight that. What are you going to do? Not only are you fighting the opposition, but now also there's infighting. How do you win that battle?
And that's it. That's what I was trying to say all along. Was
Eric said the same thing, whichever one it was, that I was sworn to protect the family, but who do you protect when the family is against itself?
Take it a step further, because twins, you're supposed to be blood. You're supposed to be the same person in different bodies, right? One is exhibiting the only way we can make progress is by employing everybody's talents to win, uniting people in a common banner to thwart our enemies. The other is a house divided amongst himself. Aemon going after Aegon, and even the tactics that were used to get the throne to begin with, the idea of kinslaying, Rhaenys not going as far as to kill Aegon in the moment that she had, because that would be a step too far. She thought, okay, it's enough to give them a warning. This shall not go unchallenged, and flies away. Anyway, so you see the differences in tactic. What about temperance? What about justice? Well, one side is employing a little of that, the other is not. But it goes to also something, just going back to Kriston again, though. When you think about all the episodes that led up to this one, what have we been saying about Kriston Cole this whole time? He says, I'm meant to be pure, and I know I'm not. But it's about lying to yourself for as long as possible until you're shown something, you're shown a reality that you cannot turn away from, that you cannot lie to yourself about anymore. One, I failed to protect the king. I thought I was in the right team. I thought I was with Aemond. His interests and mine were aligned, or our duties were aligned to Aegon. As much as Aemon will say something to the effect of, oh, he's just chortling with his buddies over there about picking out a title. That's harmless. That's brothers, jabbing each other, elbowing each other. That's fine. But then he goes and does that. So there's that. I fail to protect the king. I am outclassed. I'm effectively useless in a war with dragons. There's a truth he cannot evade, and he is adrift. It's fascinating to see finally the walls coming down. Now, who do you become as a person as a result of this? That is finally fun to see. That is interesting to me, because all this time you're like, ugh, Kriston, he's the worst. I can't even stand him now. Okay, now he's a little bit more interesting. He's acknowledging a piece of himself that he's finally understanding he cannot run away from, cannot lie to himself about. And I'm actually wondering what you guys think of him now that you're seeing this side of him. He might still be a douchebag, but it's different now, isn't it?
He's still the worst.
But it's different now, isn't it?
I still don't really like him.
He saw some terrible stuff and it affected him, but so did a whole lot of people on that field. He's not special.
Rachel, specifically you said this about Alicent. Well, she's still a queen. She's up in the high castle eating food, having servants dressing her. I don't care about her at all. I don't feel one lick of sympathy towards that bitch. Same energy. Who is doing the most lying to themselves right now in this story right now? Say it with me, folks. Small D Daemon. Big King energy. It's interesting to see these winds shift now, because I am actually more curious to see what Kriston Cole does as a result of this awakening, this rude awakening, and having lost maybe the respect of his lover, Alicent.
I think he's going to have the same realization that Rhaenyra did. Rhaenyra said, I either have to win or I'm going to die.
Well,
And
Daemon
Kristen's
said
going to be
that
in the
too.
same way. He's in it. There's no getting out. So either the Greens win or he dies. Would the Blacks accept him over there now? Of course not. After the way he treated Rhaenyra, and no, there's no way. If the Greens lose, he's a dead man.
Yeah, and if Daemon lose, he's a dead man. Rhaenyra, same energy.
I'm just going to quick throw all of this in because everybody was everywhere all at once and I didn't say anything. It is really hard for me to tell what is real and what is not real with Daemon anymore. I'm going to be honest. When all those people showed up at what I'm assuming was midnight, I'm like, oh, they're going to kill him and then he's going to wake up eating a duck.
They're trying to put you in Daemon's place because he has no idea what's going on either.
Which I get. I don't mind it, but let's do something with it already.
That's what I feel.
Thank you.
That's how I feel.
That's what Sharon and Bridget said in the reaction video.
Yeah.
Do something already.
Yeah.
Like, we get it. He's going insane. Let's let this come to a head.
And you're actively driving me insane.
Yeah, and you're taking me with you. I do think Alice is real, but I think she's the reason that all of this is happening to Daemon. I'm going to stick with that theory.
Definitely think the second part's true. I don't know if the first part's true.
I do think she's real.
She, whoever it is definitely making him crazy. I don't think she's a she. I just don't think so.
I'm saying Alice because that's who they're showing us.
Right,
Whoever this character may be, I suppose.
I do love her accent, though.
Unlike some people.
Yeah, she
I
does.
didn't mind it. I didn't hate it at all.
I love the way they set up the end of this episode, digging into these archives and finding
Dragon
out,
seeds.
finding our long lost Targaryens with the blood.
And that's what I was trying to say about Jace. It's like, of course, it's his suggestion because he don't look like a Targaryen typically.
We want Hugh.
We want Ulf.
Give
We
me
want
Hugh the
Ulf.
Hammer. No,
No,
we want Hugh
you know
the
what
Hammer.
I want to happen? You know what I want to happen? I want them to be like, oh, okay, Ulf, you claim that you're the bastard child of this guy, so we're going to call on you. And then he's going to go to the dragon, and he's going to be a big fat liar, and that dragon's going to eat him.
Eat him!
When Hugh was with his family at the gates, the Gold Cloaks just barred it. First of all, they inadvertently said Aemon is regent, which Hugh goes, that doesn't seem right. That means something happened to Aegon. Okay, that aside, the one thing I noticed was that his daughter looks like death in that scene. Just because now she's in the sunlight and not in the dim firelight that we can barely see her. And it made me sad, actually.
I also wanted to talk about the shade that Bela threw at Corlys.
Yeah.
But it's what he needed, wasn't it?
Mhm.
He needed a bit of that rainy stink.
Yeah, at the very end when he was like, oh, I'm going to make you my heir. And she's like, nah, I'm blood and fire, B.
I just love that whole interaction, though. It's just so authentic, too. It's not like this whole flowery language talking you up or trying to be wheedly and sneaky like a high tower. She means it as it is, but she says it in such a way that would salt and see
She
him.
says it very proper, but she's like, dude, we all lost her and she went down like the badass that she is. And that's exactly how she wanted to die. And that's how I want to die. And yeah, it sucks. It's sad. But dude, put your big boy pants on and be an adult.
Because we're all trying to honor her name.
Yep. I loved it. But she said it much more eloquently.
She's so right. Because as a Targaryen princess, that's exactly how Rhaenys would want to go out. She wouldn't want to die choking on her own spit in her bed as an old lady. She went out like a boss.
We all said last episode, she knew this was going to be it.
Yes. And his first act in waking up was something that Rhaenys wanted him to do right from the start, which was name his heir. And he wakes up and names his heir. And she goes, nope, but at least he did it.
You know why that didn't work out, Dave? Because that's not what his wife wanted. She wanted him to claim the heirs that are his sons.
Right. By the
That's
last
why
episode.
it didn't work out.
I meant the episode before that. She was trying to have this moment just before he was supposed to go and name your heir. She hadn't met Helen of Hull yet and saw that he was, oh, this is one of your dalliances or whatever. He deserves better than this, etc. And he saved you, etc. But it goes to that first conversation. First of all, he's moved by this. And it's the same as Rhaenyra. He's like, oh, you remind me of her, so of course it has to be you. Nope, B, not me. So then who?
But they let him live in the show. So I'm wondering if they're also going to bring Rhaenyra back as an extra layer of
Complication?
right?
Yeah.
Because they name Alan of Hull as the heir, and then Rhaenyra comes back. Not only that, but that delegitimizes all of Daemon's children with Rhaenyra.
Oh.
Wow. Well, that's what you're trying to say early in the last episode, I think it was. I'm talking about the red dragon and the gold. I thought it would just be Daemon and Rhaenyra's. It didn't dawn on me that it would be all those kids. Jace, Joffrey, all the kids that she has.
Is technically Rhaenyra's, so he would still be legitimate if Rhaenyra came back.
It would be all of Daemon's kids that would be illegitimate.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, technically, they're all illegitimate.
That's what I'm trying to say, though. It would call everything in.
If Rhaenyra came back, he's supposed to be their father,
Right,
Right,
but on paper, he is their dad.
because in the book, he was definitively dead. Sea Smoke has gotten more active lately, which...
Surprised they didn't mention Sea Smoke. I mean, always flying around, but they mentioned Silverwing and Vermithor.
We have Sheep Stealer. Imagine where they got that name.
Oh, you mentioned one.
I was like, that would make sense, though.
There's 3 wild
what
dragons.
It does. Sheep Stealer.
Sheep Stealer, Grey Ghost,
Scaly,
and Cannibal.
Cannibal. Ooh, that one's cool.
There's Vermithor, Caraxes, Cyrax. Actually, there's Vermac.
Right.
Vermithor is the second largest, comes in second only to Vhagar in size.
Which makes Jace accurate when it comes to being able to take down Vhagar with Silverwing. Boom.
Yeah. I think Silverwing was Jaehaerys' wife. King Jaehaerys, the Conciliator's wife, I think her dragon was Silverwing. And I think his was Vermithor.
Didn't her name start with an A?
Maybe it was Alyssa too. So when Daemon was first having that really off-putting dream, I first thought it was Viserys' first wife, Aemma. Maybe he had been in love with Aemma too, and he was jealous or whatever until she said that she was his mom. Then I was like, well, I guess not.
Isn't it kind of like Alexander the Great complex where you have to best your father, but in this case, you have to file your mother? You're conquering her. It's not just the whole fascination. It's the act of your son trying to best you in all things to kind of topple you, the next generation trying to overcome. And then when you're a child, it's your desire to overcome your father, to best your father. Bring it back to Daemon. He has to not only have a thing with his mother, but he has to conquer his mother. And then his mother has to say nice things about him. Just as I thought there was something there too.
Which is weird because he doesn't know her.
Which makes it even more of a complex. Rhaenyra says to Alfred before he goes, her message to Daemon, which is to continue the conversation that they were having. Now, one of the visual images that you see, and it transitions from scene to scene, is that right after Lords of Riverrun leave, he's putting his hand over the mantle of the fireplace, and it transitions to Rhaenyra doing the same thing in the opposite way. Pair that with the message she sends with Alfred, which is going to Daemon. What she really wants to say to Daemon is what he sort of said in this episode: I'm going to King's Landing. I'll invite Rhaenyra to be the queen by my side. Now, do you think she, as the conciliator and not the conqueror, will say to Daemon, do whatever it takes, and we can share the crown together? Do you think that she might be proposing that?
No.
Because she knows that Viserys did not want Daemon on the throne. The whole reason she's fighting for the throne is because of that vision that Viserys told her that was Aegon the Conqueror's vision.
Might she give him the idea that that's her plan and then just kill him when they get there?
I wasn't going to go that far, but that's kind of where I was going with that.
Yes, she would have to.
I wasn't.
She would have to kill him.
Let's go here and go no further.
He can be a good asset. He can get stuff done. He's got a dragon.
She's doing the thing for the audio podcast. She's doing the thing where she hides her face. But that's what I was trying to say is really she's being the conciliator. She's getting what she needs out of him. She's hedging her bets.
She knows how to play the long game.
Yeah, Jace did the work of allowing the Greybeards from Winterfell to ride directly to Harrenhal instead of going way around and taking forever, not relying on Daemon to protect Harrenhal. But she's also hedging her bets with Sir Alfred in saying, maybe in facilitating the conversation of okay, let's do this. You do what you need to do, and then we'll rule King's Landing side by side as king and queen. Fair deal. And then whatever happens after that does not matter. She can say it. She doesn't even have to mean it. Because this far, based on what we've seen that she has not seen yet, but in example, he's not sent a raven in return. He's already gone too far. And she's given him chance after chance after chance to actually redeem himself, which was the whole point of him taking Harrenhal. So anything that happens after that, I don't really care.
Part of the reason she's sending Alfred there is to find out his intentions. She wants him to report back because, like you just said, Daemon's not.
Given Alfred Broom's distaste for having a woman on the throne, I would be super worried that he would go over there and throw his lot in with Daemon.
See, I wouldn't, though, because that would be the same thing as the Greens are doing. It would be less honorable to throw in with Daemon. You guys just said it. Violate Viserys' own wishes that Rhaenyra occupy the throne. And he said it himself, I would rather die.
Yeah, I was going to point that out too. They made a point during that conversation where she pointed out his loyalty to her and to her dad, and that would be a risk.
And it's really easy to confuse his attitude as defiance to her rule. But even she says, no, he's doing this because it's for my own good. She's admitting it, and it's frustrating it is for her to admit it. He's right. I shouldn't be going out there. I should be here. I don't want to be here, but I have to be here. I am the ruler. I'm the queen.
He seems like one of those people that genuinely puts the needs of the people before all else. And where he stands, it's Rhaenyra on the throne.
And if you like what you heard, head on over to ratethispodcast.com/squawking 5 stars and a dragon emoji is all we need to know that you are loving this. Feel free to tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like. Just tell us after every single episode because it really helps. And leave your handle so that we can tag you on social media when you do, because we share that stuff. And if you really like what we're doing and you want to support our endeavors, which are ginormous. We've taken on a lot these last few months. Head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead and just tip us. When you do, you'll have forever access to Discord and access for 30 days to our supporter back content, namely the unedited episode recordings and a couple of free perks from our Ko-fi shop and then some. Perhaps join a membership tier on either Ko-fi or patreon.com/squawkydead, because when you do, even at the $1 a month Walker's tier level, you'll have even more access to our Discord, access to more free perks in the Ko-fi shop. And if you happen to join the Whispers and Survivors tier, you will get a free classic t-shirt of your choosing from our merch store, the ability to join us in our Jackbox Games live streams, as well as get shout outs at the end of these episodes, which may be appearing on the screen right now. And if you happen to join the Survivors tier, you can show up with us, telling us why we're wrong, and not just in the comments, but with your face, mouth, head, alongside us. In any case, I've been your host, David Cameo, and we were joined by, we are all together with Cosmom09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/Punky Brewster. That's PUNKYBRUISEETER. Thank you for listening to this Finer Points, Facts Over Feelings discussion on House of the Dragon's 5th episode of its 2nd season titled Regent. And with that, everybody, I wish you a farewell until next week. We've only got, 3 episodes left now? Ooh.
Yep.
Time flies when you're having fun on dragons. Gross. By the way, one more thing. When they were carting around Meleese on King's Landing, you can see the head jiggle a little
And the
bit.
flies at the top, you could see the spinal column bone up there.
It's the first thing you saw was the neck part.
That was not as bad as when they sewed Grey Wind's head onto Robb Stark and paraded him around. That was even worse.
Hundo P.
But I
Was
think
that?
it would have been super hard to stitch Melee's head onto Rhaenys. I don't think that would have worked.